Okay, fangen wir mal an.
Okay, let's start with an easy one. Let's say 62 divided by 167.
167.
Neuroscientist Thorsten Fehr of Bremen University specializes in studying people with gargantuan powers of memory. Mathematics genius Rüdiger Gamm is his most spectacular case so far.
0,9. Ja, die 30.
To the 30 places shown on the calculator, precisely.
The human brain is the most mysterious piece of matter on Earth. It was just as effective in the Middle Ages as it is on the internet. It's been used to invent symphonies and to devise violent crimes. Yet it's only now, in the 21st century, with high-tech computers, that scientists have begun to watch the brain while it's actually thinking. Their most important discovery is that it's almost a miracle that this peculiar thing in our heads works at all. But certain miracles are only noticeable when something goes wrong, as it has for a group of people of less than 100 in number worldwide who display astonishing, almost supernatural abilities. Despite their mental disabilities, they are capable of things for which science is only now beginning to find an answer. Scientists call these people savants, the knowing ones, and more than half of these mysterious people are autistic. Experts all over the world are now working on the question, is there a hidden genius within all of us? Hollywood star Dustin Hoffman won an Oscar for his portrayal of a savant in the film Rain Man. He dedicated his Oscar to the real Rain Man, Kim Peek, who inspired the movie, thereby honoring both Kim and all other savants, the guiding lights of our journey into this world of beautiful minds.
When he was about 4 and a half, he had memorized the first 8 volumes of a set of encyclopedias, which happened to be the index volumes.
After just one helicopter flight, Stephen Wiltshire can draw the entire aerial perspective of cities. But he didn't speak his first words, pen and paper, until he was 5.
He's able to absorb like a video recorder, just record what he needs, rewinds back to what he wants, plays, and it just comes out on paper.
As a child, Matt Savage couldn't stand bodily contact. Sounds drove him crazy. At 6, he learned to play the piano, overnight. He's been composing jazz since he was 7.
He says to us that the music is already in him. He just understands these things that normally people have to learn. He reads it, he absorbs it, and it's his.
2/3 of all livestock handling facilities in the USA are designed by Dr. Temple Grandin. She's autistic and understands cows blindly, but to her, our human language is entirely foreign.
If you got rid of all the genetics that makes autism, you wouldn't have Einstein. A little bit of the trait might give you a brilliant scientist, but too much of the trait and you get a non-verbal, very handicapped person that's going to have to live in a supervised living situation.
With normal cognition, we don't call them savants, we call them geniuses, right? Or very talented, very gifted people. So by definition, savantism implied this kind of a juxtaposition of special skills and cognitive deficit.
Until we can understand the savant, we can't understand ourselves. And no model of brain function is going to be complete until it can fully account for this incredible disparity.
Dr. Darrell Trefford holds an award as one of the USA's 100 best doctors. He's been collecting information on the knowing ones since 1962. Today, Trefford Drive is the name of the street where the American psychiatrist met his first savant, a young patient who knew the entire bus timetable of Milwaukee as accurately as a computer would, after reading it only once. Since then, Darrell has tracked down some 100 similar isolated and enigmatic instances all over the world. 100 people who can perform gigantic feats of memory, but in whose heads something has also gone awry. All of them show almost extraterrestrial talents for mathematics, arts and music, or obscure knowledge. Why? This has become a lifelong quest for Darrell. Neurologists are now trying to solve the same enigma. Which secret compartment in the human brain does the savant alone have access to?
When I first started looking at savant syndrome some years ago, I began to wonder about the potential within all of us in terms of if someone with a severe disability can have that much ability, what might that say about the potential within us all?
If we could simulate that with normal people, we could, if you like, turn off the brain of normal people to turn on these unusual skills.
The human brain combines the appearance of a large walnut with the consistency of a soft-boiled egg. Yet nothing in the entire universe is as complicated as this slippery lump of more than 100,000 million neurons. The secret of thought has occupied human brains for centuries. In anatomy collections around the world, elite brains have been held in storage, in the hope of someday finding out exactly what it is that makes people geniuses. Things advanced in the early 19th century when the German doctor Franz Josef Gall came up with a bold theory. He was the first to ascribe particular characteristics and intellectual abilities to exactly defined regions of the brain. However, Gall's brain maps were as erroneous and nonsensical as the sea charts before Christopher Columbus. Only the revolutionary technology of the last few years has made it possible to measure the brain with millimetric precision and to trace in detail the extraordinary gifts of people like Rüdiger Gumm.
Okay, let's do a few exponents. Let's say 67 to the power of 33.
Eine Dezillion. 821 Nonilliarden, 664 Nonillionen. 894 Oktilliarden, 730 Oktillionen. 78 Septilliarden, 753 Septillionen. 748 Sextilliarden, 347 Sextillionen. 739 Quintilliarden, 907 Quintillionen. 973 Quadrilliarden, 449 Quadrillionen. 122 Trilliarden, 612 Trillionen, 636 Billiarden. 443 Billionen, 46 Milliarden. 968 Millionen, 910.787.
Right up to the last place, precisely.
Ich weiß nicht mehr genau, wie alt ich war.
I don't know anymore how old I was, maybe 2 or 3, when I learned by heart that Mount Everest was 29,017 feet, or that Columbus discovered America in 1492. Over the years I moved on from learning historical dates by heart to endless facts about manned spaceflight. Everything about history, geography or space travel interested me. Since I was a child I had a numerical grid in my head where I can fill in what I'd learned.
Und da habe ich mir als Kind schon ein Zahlenraster aufgebaut, wo ich dann meine späteren Fähigkeiten habe wirklich reinlegen können.
Scoring consistently below the pass mark at secondary school, Rüdiger Gumm did not give any hints of his superhuman mathematical abilities. Only when he was 20 did he realize, by chance, that he had what it took to be a mathematical genius. While listening to a mental arithmetic champion on the radio, Gumm played along and outdid the champion. Gumm began to train his talent. Today, he masters all two-figure numbers to the power of 50, 8-figure trigonometric functions, and pi to 5,000 decimal points. Gumm earns his money as a mind coach, advising National League teams and top managers on how to improve their memory and concentration. Researchers now aim to catch up with this walking calculator at Magdeburg University, where a high-performance scanner will record Gumm's brain activity while he's calculating. Using the MRI machine, neuroscientists Henning Scheich and Thorsten Fehr can measure with millimetric precision when certain particular neurons are activated. The activated regions consume more oxygen and sugar, so more blood will temporarily flow into them. As Gumm calculates, the scanner will precisely record these changes in the brain's metabolism. Specialists in New York will animate the data provided by the scanner into 3D images exclusively for this film.
The modern technologies now allow us for the first time to explore the biology of these behaviors, to actually see if we can find differences in the physiology, the blood flow, the brain connections that make one brain able to remember things like this for 20 years and other people's brains to not remember even for minutes to hours, such as in Alzheimer's disease. And so by looking at these extremes, it may unlock the keys to memory itself.
We tend to think of ourselves as being born with a blank disc and a beautiful piece of machinery called the brain, and we become whatever we put on the blank disc. That is what we are. But in order to explain the prodigious savant, you have to answer the question, how can somebody know something that they've never learned?
January 1st of 1957.
Tuesday.
That's right. March 28th, 1957.
Thursday.
That's right. May 30th, 1957.
Thursday.
That's right. March 27th, 1958.
Thursday.
That's right. June 10th, 1954.
Thursday.
That's right. September 22nd, 1954.
Wednesday.
That's it. December 4th, 1954.
Sunday.
No, it was a Saturday. How about June 1st,
Orlando Serrell is a so-called acquired savant, the term for those who are not born savants, but who suddenly become one, through an accident, an epileptic fit, or a stroke. As a 10-year-old, Virginian Orlando Serrell was a very ordinary boy. But on the 15th of January 1979, he was hit on the head by a baseball, so hard he lost consciousness. Since then, Orlando knows the day of the week and the weather on every date after his accident, without thinking about it. Only now, at our test at the National Institute of Health in Washington, does it become clear that Orlando's knowledge of the dates before his accident is also improving, without any practice at all.
I don't really know of a savant who has done that before, has been able to report the events with the dates in the same way. So that's, to me, what's most impressive. August 27th, 1988.
Saturday.
That's right.
I was hanging out that night.
How about July 4th, 1989?
Tuesday. July 1st, Saturday, I was at a friend's house cooking. They cooked barbecue chicken. They were part of chicken, the legs.
January 5th, 1986.
Sunday.
That's right.
January 3rd, Friday, I was at my cousin's house doing some recording on some cassette tapes.
February 7th, 1983.
Monday, February 11th, Friday, it rained that day, had pizza from Domino's, pepperoni sausage.
December 11th, 1991.
Wednesday, December 13th, Friday, I didn't go to work that day.
Okay. What is it about Orlando's brain that allows him to retain the things that most of us would discard through even the moments of the day? And so I think it's very striking to understand the capacity of the brain. If he can remember all of these details, then can all of us remember, much more than we are on a day-to-day basis.
Can just one knock on the head make our memory infinite? Orlando, a janitor at Walmart, shows the researchers where the ball hit him. Scientists have tested him often, and it's been proven that on all the weather data after 1979, Orlando has never made a mistake.
October 13th, Saturday, it was cloudy. It had one of those pullover hoods. This part right here was black, and it was cloudy. And this girl that I know went across the street to the convenience store. She had on white tennis shoes, white socks, blue jeans, and a yellow one on pullover top. And that was October 13th, Saturday, 84, Run DMC, Curtis Blower, and the Fat Boys at the Hampton Coliseum when the people got mugged in the parking lot. Now that's too much stuff to hold it into one brain. We're talking about 20 years ago.
So how do you do it?
I don't know. So that's on October 15th is a Monday.
Orlando Serrell proves that we all have this ability, and that's a profoundly important scientific advance. Not as other people have thought, that savants practice in the, constantly day and night, and that's what got it to them to this level, and anyone could practice day and night. No, that's wrong. So firstly was to aim to prove that we all have savant-like skills, but our brain deliberately suppresses them.
I'm Ben Gash, an actor, voiceover artist, painter and musician from Berlin. Something in my head is obviously suppressing my inner memory genius. My mental arithmetic is average, and I can't remember the weather on the 13th of October 1985. But would I really want to swap a head injury for that? Would you? For this series, I've been employed as the average Joe. I've been pushed into the same scanner as the savants in order to compare us. With the help of magnetic resonance, neurologists have opened up the black box in our brains and discovered that it contains not only one form of memory, but many, built up in layers over the course of evolution. The narrow tube and the hammering noise of the scanner aren't bringing back any good memories for me, though. Although I know that nothing is going to happen to me, my heart is in my throat. And knowing that my MRI data has also been animated in New York and that I can watch my own brain on TV doesn't make me any happier either. That my heart is racing is due to my brainstem. Anxiety instinctively puts my body into alarm mode. Whether rightly so, only the cerebral cortex knows. As the working memory of all thoughts, this is disproportionately large in humans and contains inconceivable amounts of neurons. If I counted all the connections between them, it would take me 32 million years. But my panic in the MRI machine is down to my old mammal brain, called the limbic system. This is our emotional memory, against which even the cortex can't compete, even if it's ever so clever.
Unsere Großhirnrinde als Sitz des bewusstseinsfähigen Gedächtnisses.
Our cerebral cortex as the seat of our conscious memory, and that's what it's all about after all, has 500 billion contact points, or synapses. And we know that the memory is coded in synaptic connections. These are the carriers. Every one of the 500 billion synapses can take on maybe 10 different active steps. Once more, 10 times 500 billion, and you can store everything. Even every molecule in space, in each unit. In principle, our memories have an infinite capacity.
Alles speichern, auch jedes Molekül im Weltall. Unsere Gedächtnisleistungen sind im Prinzip völlig unbegrenzt.
Everything that we experience is recorded, but we don't necessarily have access to it. Unless we have somehow labeled that with an emotion or some kind of special event, or we may remember our 70th birthday or our 25th wedding anniversary or whatever. Those things are stored because we sort of tag those with a little bit of a little pop-up ad, so to speak, that says, remember this.
Kim Peek has really earned his nickname Kim-puter. Kim remembers everything as pure, unfiltered data, like a computer does. The real Rain Man knows 2,000 years of calendar dates, all the dialing codes and highway systems in the USA, all the historic dates in the world, and every tune he's ever heard. But he cannot fry an egg or dress himself. He will never have a driving license or a girlfriend. That would just be too much for his brain. Kim is over 50, but still lives with his father Fran in Salt Lake City. Every day, his father dresses him, brushes his teeth, and accompanies him to the city library. Over the years, Kim has read about 12,000 books and hasn't forgotten a single word. He has never learnt them by heart. He has simply read them, every book exactly once. There are over 200 boxes worth of books stored on his brain's hard drive.
When they gave him the test, they gave him 8 pages. He read them in 53 seconds, and 2 hours later had a 98.7% recall, including the page numbers. So he got them all in order. So there's something in his optical system allows him to put things in order when he's reading. I asked if I could take the same test because his brain was the only thing anybody studied. It took me 23 minutes to read what he read in 53 seconds, and I had a 45% recall, which was normal.
One of the main things is that he's able to read one page with one eye and another page with another eye in 8 seconds and put that into his hard disk.
He's just an amazing encyclopedia of knowledge, of obscure knowledge as well, but also one gets the sense that he's a very warm, feeling and soulful individual, and it was actually quite a pleasure to meet him.
Which years did Churchill serve as British Prime Minister?
1940, 45, 1951, 55.
Now, who wrote the original score for the movie Dr. Zhivago?
Marshara.
What is the main music?
Somewhere, my love.
When did Alfred Hitchcock live?
1899, 1980.
Who succeeded Charlemagne?
It was Louis the Great, #1.
Can you name the last 6 predecessors of Elizabeth of England and the current Queen?
It was George VI, 1, Edward VIII, 2, George V, 3, Edward VII, 4, Victoria, 5, and William IV, 6.
Okay. Can you name the winning horses, the triple winners in the Kentucky Derby?
Sir Barton, Gallant Fox, Omaha, War Admiral, Whirlaway, Count Fleet.
How long is the Amazon River?
About 4,000 miles.
When did Alexander the Great live?
356, 323 BC.
When did the first record of the Beatles hit the Billboard charts of America?
February 1964.
Okay. You know what it was? What was the first song on it?
I wanna hold your hand.
All the savants have a remarkable memory, but Kim's memory is like no other person's memory. And I've looked in the literature of the last 145 years, and there is no other case like his in that history either.
In the bustle of Potsdamer Platz, Kim Peek would be helpless. My brain, however, does what it has learnt. It makes choices and forgets, with no effort at all. In fractions of a second, I avoid people I hardly notice. I estimate how fast cars are driving without really looking. I simply ignore millions of details so I can concentrate on the essentials. My brain has learned to construct an average. Even though friends look different every day, I can easily make them out in a crowd because unconscious filter systems not only organize what I see, but also what I remember. The cerebral cortex memorizes everything I can put into words, yet soon after, I only have access to a fraction of it. Science still can't clearly explain why this is. What we do know is that 2 triggers lie in the limbic system, the hippocampus and the amygdala. These give an emotional coloring to my memories, so that I forget Goethe's birthday or the rule of 3, but not the color red or the school trip to Zut. What I see from day to day is really just the sum of my memories. That's why each of us sees a different world, even when we're standing on the same escalator.
In order to maneuver in this complex world, we have models of the world as we've seen it before in our head. I call them mindsets. And we see the world through the mindsets, and that simplifies life. When life changes a little, doesn't matter. We are not aware of it. We have projected out what we expect. Autistic savants don't have these models. They see the world as the way it really is, different every day.
In California, a team of NASA researchers worked to discover the mysterious brain circuits of Kim Peek, the Kim-puter. Kim has no filter systems. He just has an enormous hard drive.
Do you want to know when his birthday is?
When?
June 23rd, 55.
It is a Thursday, and this year it's a Thursday. 50 years old.
When's he gonna retire?
2020 will be on a Tuesday. 50 years old.
The NASA project uses for the first time a combination of newly developed high-tech tests. The same technology will be used in the future to monitor the medical condition of astronauts in space. Kim's father could hardly have imagined that his son would one day be in demand as a subject of research. It took a while for people not to dismiss Kim as disabled, but rather to acknowledge him for his astounding abilities.
At about 16 months, it was the first time he noticed he would be able to read, and enjoyed that. But when he was born, and at 9 months, we took him for a physical recommendation of the doctor, and they told us that he was severely mentally retarded. He would never be able to learn. He would never be able to walk. We should institutionalize him and forget about him.
At 4, Kim learns the first 8 volumes of a lexicon by heart. He learns all of the USA's highways, phone codes and TV networks, but still is seen as a freak. At 33, by chance, he meets the Hollywood scriptwriter Barry Morrow. Morrow immediately begins work on Rain Man. 2 years later, Kim and his father Fran fly to Los Angeles. Dustin Hoffman dedicates his Oscar to Kim with the words, "I may be the star, but you are the heavens." It is only through Rain Man that Kim has evolved from being a shy and unsociable memory master into an entertainer. He has answered thousands of questions in lectures, on school visits, and at research seminars. Female history students fall for Kim's charms in a matter of seconds.
This is my birthday, August 5th, 1947.
It was a Tuesday, and this year it's a Friday, and you retire in 2012 on a Sunday.
And what was the best picture when she was 15?
Lawrence of Arabia.
That's right. This is Laura Kim right here. She's going to tell you her birthday.
January 20th, 1987.
It was a Tuesday, and this year it was Thursday, and you retire in 2052 on a Saturday.
Are you familiar with Rembrandt?
1606, 1669.
Where was he born?
He was born in Delft, Holland, but lived for a time in even old New York, was once New Amsterdam. How did they make of it?
They love applause just like we love applause. They like that kind of feedback, and that has an effect which is just reinforcing, and from that there is this broadening. So it's not just doing their thing or rehearsing their talent. With that comes more language, increased socialization, and a less dependence.
The most important thing about him is over the last 15 years, his heart's become bigger than his brain towards people. He loves people.
Howard Potter feels most comfortable in an empty stadium. He doesn't like to look at people face to face and has only recently learned to buy chocolate at the corner shop on his own. His brain, however, knows the results of nearly every game in world football and the day of the week for any date 22,000 years before and after Christ. Goal celebrations or the dramas of relegation don't mean much to Howard. His brain only sees numbers.
He just follows what the crowd does. He doesn't instigate anything on his own. He will kind of, if a goal is scored, he will jump up, but that's because the rest of the people have jumped up.
As a child, Howard Potter loved mashed potatoes and peas. One day, he complained about his brother Duncan having 2 more peas on his plate than he did. Stunned, the parents counted every pea on the children's plates. And indeed, Howard had exactly 2 peas less. It was only when Howard began to perform his calendrical party trick at family celebrations in Bournemouth, southern England, that the amazed Potters realized that their son Howard was a savant. Over time, Howard discovered his interest in prime numbers, square roots, the Top of the Pops hit parade, and the infinite reservoir of the football results.
Played the 2 semi-finals of the World Cup in 1982 in Spain, and what were the results?
Italy 2, Poland 0.
And what's the other 2 teams?
West Germany 3, France 3.
Right, correct.
West Germany won 5-4 on penalties.
Correct. Which team went out in the quarter-finals of the World Cup in 1994 in the USA, losing against Brazil?
Holland. Brazil 3,
Yeah.
Holland 2.
Right. In 1968, Germany defeated England for the first time. What was the score and who scored?
1-0, Beckenbauer.
That's correct. Inter Milan won the European Champions Cup. Who did they defeat in the final?
When?
1964. Who did they defeat in the final?
Real Madrid.
What was the score?
3-1.
And who did they defeat in the semi-final?
Borussia Dortmund.
That's correct.
Borussia Dortmund.
From day to day, we rely on cognitive or semantic memory. It's very, very broad, but speaking for myself, at least, it's not very deep because I forget an awful lot of things. The savant uses the habit or procedural memory, which is not very broad because it's always within this very narrow area, but it's exceedingly deep and it seems to have no limit to it. It just is bottomless.
While the outside world rushes by, Howard holds tight to his numbers. Calculating square roots calms his brain. It's a daily ritual, like his mother reading the newspaper. The mystery remains, however, why it is that savants have such very limited areas of speciality. Do they simply have different talents, just like the rest of us? Kim Peek has been bored by mathematics for a long time and has now shifted his attention to books and music. Researchers have just discovered that he also remembers every tune he ever heard, perfectly. He doesn't have to strain to remember, he just can't forget. His memory is like a search engine on the internet. He has access to every detail of his knowledge without making an effort. His knowledge is just there.
When you first try to learn to ride a bike, you think about, I got to put 1 foot here and 1 foot there, and I have to balance. And then pretty soon you have the I got it experience. I can ride a bike, and it's all automatic. And that's automatic memory, and that's the kind of memory that savants have. It's an automatic memory. Then they have no concept or idea of how this is, that it's working.
Tangent of 62,875,112.
0,6, 2, 4, 8, 6, 9, 3, 5, 1,
95 divided by 109. 13 to the power of 7.
71 Quadrilliarden, 82 Quadrillionen,
93 to the power of 20.
2 Sextilliarden, 342 Sextillionen, 95414403669724777, 743 Septilliarden, 712 Septillionen, 964 Milliarden, 865 Millionen, 801, 9, 0.
Jawohl, exakt richtig.
Precisely, as far as the computer can tell, that's correct.
Exakt richtig.
Rüdiger Gumm does maths the same way average people ride a bike, without thinking. Animation specialists have prepared the MRI data from Magdeburg so that we can see his brain while it's calculating, and compare it with the brain of a person with normal mathematical abilities. The result is somewhat intriguing. Given easy and mid-range problems to solve, Rüdiger in green activates less of the brain than the red-colored average. It's exactly the same in all experts who have extreme areas of speciality. The fewer nerve cells activated, the more efficient our brain. Rüdiger Gumm activates the yellow-colored areas only when those of us with a normal ability have long since given up. Normally, these areas have nothing to do with maths, but Rüdiger's brain has filed at least 250,000 intermediary results here, which he can retrieve when solving complex calculations.
Dieser Bereich hier ist sehr exklusiv bei Herrn Gumm aktiv.
This region is exclusively active with Mr. Gumm. When he calculates two-digit numbers with high exponents, the activity moves further down to an associated region of the brain. Interestingly, this area is particularly important in the face recognition. People are experts in face recognition from the start. This means that when someone develops an expertise, they start to mobilize regions in these areas in order to store their specialist knowledge.
Sein Expertenwissen quasi abzuspeichern.
I can calculate between 20 and 30 steps a second. It happens automatically. When I have the end result, I see it as a series of numbers in front of my mind's eye.
We move as adults through city traffic almost as automatically as we recognize faces from a young age. Instead of filing intermediary steps in mathematics, we file innumerable movements, appraisals and daily routines that we take up and use without thinking.
Man muss sich das so vorstellen, dass das Gehirn.
The idea is that the brain always likes to do things on an unconscious memory level, because the things we do unconsciously are simple in metabolic terms. They are fast, run smoothly, and are unproblematic, although also inflexible. Basically, things that we can do easily are undemanding. Our consciousness is first activated when new, important, and complex things come up that activate special networks, more exactly the conscious networks in our cerebral cortex. That's when everything gets really expensive and complicated. There are amazingly few things that we do in full consciousness. Experts estimate that 90% of our actions and reactions are controlled by our unconscious memory. In order to cope with constantly changing traffic, we have learned to change gear, brake and steer automatically, so that the driving routine takes place as soon as we get behind the wheel. Neurobiologists think that savants use the same memory files for factual knowledge. One theory says that the complex circuits between the cerebral cortex and the limbic system beneath it are defective in many savants. Our selective perception and our factual memory are normally based on these circuits. Our daily routines, and possibly also the savant's mental dexterity, are in contrast controlled by simpler circuits that lie deeper in the brain. Neurologists call this the habit memory. This is how the limbic system constantly deciphers the meaning of facial expressions, and the cerebellum controls our daily movements.
We're driven by our unconscious mind. Isn't that the interesting thing? So much of what we do is unconscious. The decisions we make are almost dictated to us. I often wonder who's in charge here. You know, who's running the show? How much control do we really have?
How much control does a mathematical artiste such as Rüdiger Gamm have at gambling? We have put him to the test with a game of blackjack, with a professional croupier. Rüdiger is playing the game for the first time. The result, after 45 minutes, Rüdiger has managed to remember every card he was given. The longer the game, the more of an advantage he has. In 3/4 of an hour, he wins €900. With a little more experience and more calculated betting, he would have won around €4,000.
Blackjack. Blackjack. 150, bitte sehr der Herr. Blackjack. Blackjack bezahlt, bitte sehr der Herr.
Just a shame that Rüdiger doesn't enjoy playing cards and therefore doesn't feel like making an effort to learn properly.
To perform at the top level, it's not enough to practice for half an hour every day. A lot of people think so, but it's not true. To really perform at the top, you almost have to be crazy.
In the hustle and bustle of Piccadilly Circus, Howard Potter is lost. It would be difficult for him to go shopping alone or find the way to the hotel, nor could he ask someone for help. Howard has never phoned a friend just to chat. But every telephone booth is a treasure trove for him in his never-ending quest for his only passion, prime numbers.
Not 829 7477 2477 2531 8999 8951.
Autistic people, they say, are in a world of their own, and that's very true, because he can shut the outside world out. We think of like other things, mortgage, food, doing this, being here, there, and he can shut all that out and just solely concentrate on what his numbers.
We have taken Howard for tests at the London laboratory of mathematics expert Brian Butterworth. With a new procedure, he can measure the oxygen-dependent reflectance of light in the blood, therefore brain activity, faster and with less stress than with an MRI scanner. After hundreds of such tests, Butterworth has deduced that although the memory's capacity for numbers certainly depends on practice, it is mostly down to our genes.
All right, Howard, let's do some prime numbers. What is the nearest prime number to 2,000?
1999.
Okay. The nearest prime number to 7,000?
7001.
I've proposed a theory called the numerical module theory. And essentially what this says is that there's a set of neurons, brain cells, in your parietal lobes that is specialized for numbers. It's something which has an ancestral version in lions and monkeys and dogs and cats and other, and birds indeed, other species that we've looked at. And it's for detecting what one might call the numerosity parameter in the environment. That is, how many things there are in a set of things. And if you haven't got this, you're going to find it very difficult to learn anything about arithmetic. And if you have got it, this will form the basis of more advanced arithmetical skills.
In San Francisco, researchers working for NASA are using further tests to try and decipher the secrets of the infinite Kimputer's hard drive. One initial theory suggests that Kim, like all savants, has access to the raw material of his memory. This means that the particular mechanism of filters that most people use to collate and evaluate information and forget what is not relevant doesn't work with Kim, or at least not in the usual way. Kim, however, has learnt to swim in a sea of memories, because, after all, nothing is as adaptable as the human brain. But how Kim keeps his head above water is something that is still completely unknown. A look inside his head reveals that in Kim's brain, the liquid-filled ventricles are much larger than usual. They normally fill the space between the limbic system and the cortex. With Kim, they extend as far as the cerebellum, the human motor memory. The cerebellum, which normally consists of two equally sized halves, is asymmetrical in Kim's case. The left half of the cerebellum is clearly smaller. As yet, this explains only one thing: the somewhat awkward and occasionally clumsy movements of this memory master.
Here's the brain.
Whose is that?
That's your brain.
With a new technique called fiber tracking, researchers now even have evidence of connections between regions of the brain. In San Francisco, the experts using this procedure make an amazing discovery. Kim has no corpus callosum, the large bundle of nerves, here colored red at the lower end of the cortex. It normally connects the two cerebral hemispheres. This is usually only seen in so-called split-brain patients, usually epileptics, who have had the connection surgically removed, with astounding results.
If you show them something only in one side of their visual field, only one half of their brain will see it, the other half will be unaware of its existence. So for example, in a normal person who has his language centers in the left brain, if you show an object, say an apple, to his right brain, he will be unable to say what the object is, because the speaking half of the brain is not aware of the object.
This doubtless explains Kim's magic trick of being able to read 2 pages of a book at the same time, with one eye on each page. Maybe this is also why Kim simply can't explain to his father why he looks through old directories in the library day after day in order to write up endless lists of names in his notebooks. Put simply, in Kim's brain there are 2 separate hard drives on which to store his data. But does that explain his continuous access to all his memorized facts? Why doesn't Kim's brain have a delete key? And what exactly is it in us that decides who and what we consciously remember? From the point of view of our billions of neurons, every memory is essentially just a pattern of electrochemical stimuli. No matter whether they're storing 12,000 books, our first love, or other mysterious talents.
With the human, you have to understand that the central nervous system is continually replacing itself. So the cells that I have in my brain now are different than they were 2 or 3 years ago. And so I had to replace all of those. And there had to be a mechanism to store that electrical impulse in some neurochemical way. So it's an interaction between the chemistry and the electrical charge, and it is a complex interaction that we're really only beginning to understand.
Every ordinary person knows exactly where to find their favorite yogurt in the supermarket. They know hundreds of shops and thousands of prices. But we screen out millions of details so we can concentrate on the essentials. The downside is we always think along the same tracks. The next episode of this journey therefore looks into an even more amazing human skill: creativity. Is it possible that each one of us not only has infinite memory lying dormant within, but also other, completely different talents?
We are designed to see the ultimate label, not the parts that made it up. We see the whole, not the parts. But many people could argue against that. So this is an experiment that takes you, anyone out there, pulls them in, does this, and shows that they can have savant-like skills. By turning off part of the brain, not by stimulating it, or by turning off part of the brain.
In a Sydney laboratory, Alan Snyder is trying to simulate a knock on the head using magnetic impulses, not in order to improve our memories, but to improve our ability to be creative. like the savant Alonso Clemens, who makes sculptures of animals in minutes. We'll meet him in our next episode, along with Matt Savage, who learned to play the piano overnight and who released his first CD of his own compositions at 7 years of age. Above the roofs of Rome, we'll meet Stephen Wiltshire, known as the Living Camera. He wants to draw a 5.5-yard panorama of the immortal city, entirely from memory. Also, the mysterious Tommy McHugh. After a stroke, he instantly discovered a talent for painting. How many talents like these lie hidden in our heads? Mental arithmetic whiz Rüdiger Gumm also has another amazing talent. He can speak backwards fluently, word for word. We tested him with Heinrich Heine and Bertolt Brecht, and with one of Germany's most famous poems, Das Lied der Glocke, by Friedrich Schiller.
Nahm an Kräften wieder einmal zu.
Ich habe mit ungefähr 1,5–2 Jahren
I started speaking simple words backwards at 1.5 or 2, before I started speaking forward. At 6 or 7 I started to read my comic books backwards.
Ich habe mit 6 oder 7 meine ersten Comichefte von rückwärts gelesen.
Warum? Why?
Ich weiß es nicht mehr.
I don't remember. It was fun. It was something the others didn't do.
Andere gemacht haben,
I always enjoyed doing things the others couldn't do.
die andere nicht gekonnt haben.
Festgemauert in der Erden
3 Uhr meg zefniret netre.
steht die Form aus Lehm gebrannt.
Tets in Bruf suam held narbek.
Heute muss die Glocke werden.
Et tue sum it ekolk netre.
Frischgesellen seid zur Hand.
Schirf nelesek dias rutzna.
Von der Stirne heiß.
Nofred inret sia.
Rinnen muss der Schweiß.
Nenir sumret siavsch.
Soll das Werk den Meister loben.
Los sat kreunet red siam nebol.
Doch der Segen kommt von oben.
Kot red neges tmok nof nebo.